This is a D6 Generation Pip. Bite-sized content for a busy gamer. Sometimes featuring Craig, sometimes featuring Russ.
Hey, what about me?
Oh yeah, and sometimes featuring Rafe, Hollywood Granger.
D6G Hot Take.
I'm calling these hot takes because I that's the music that I already had set up. And today we are talking to the dynamic duo behind Winged Hussar Publishing, and that is Vince and Brandon Rospond, father and son team. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Craig. Always good to be here.
Thanks for having us on. Always excited to talk to you.
And it's always good to talk to you guys as well. Longtime listeners know Vince, and Vince has been a longtime friend of the show, long before he offered to start publishing my stuff. So clearly his judgment is impaired, but we take full advantage of that, and we like him anyway.
Yes, then Brandon, since the aughts.
Indeed, the aughts. That was a long time ago. In fact, this is a big year for you guys, right?
Yeah, so 2022 is 10 years of Winged Hussar Publishing, which is I had to actually stop and do the math myself, and that took a little bit, but it's true. And so we're going to be doing all sorts of fun things, starting off at Adepticon this year, as a matter of fact.
Oh, that's excellent. We haven't decided yet if we're going to be able to pull off Adepticon, but we're hoping to. So that'd be great if we're all going to be there. And we don't know what it's going to look like yet, right?
Right.
But the plan is to do something cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And Brandon, of course, is Vince's son. And Brandon, you joined quite a while ago now. You've been working. How did that happen? How did you come on to the family biz, as they say?
Well, I've been with Winged Hussar Publishing pretty much since the foundation. We were originally looking to try to publish a novel that I had written. And I had an agent and an editor, and it didn't really go too far. My editor had my novel, I think, for 2 years and got maybe half a chapter done in that time. And we decided, you know what, why don't we just start our own publishing company? And my novel was one of the first test things that we did. And thus it's now been taken off the publishing schedule for some re-editing, since it was our very first foray into the self-publishing market. But yeah, I started off helping my dad edit the first two books that we had on Frederick's Orders, his Generals, and Caesar's Gallic Wars. I helped with those two in the final editing process, and then I branched into just working solely with the science fiction and fantasy stuff.
So that's an excellent segue into what you guys do, or what you started with, other than the fiction that you just mentioned, is actually these historicals, right? So you have a whole array of actual, like, primary source works and other works of history focusing on military history, I believe.
Right. For the most part, the historical stuff focuses on military history. So we have published some original source material, such as the Gallic Wars and Frederick's Orders, but we've published books by authors from basically all over the world on different subjects. We've done books. We have a line of sort of books of armies of, which are all illustrated in color, and we've covered Napoleonic
for
Wars.
war gamers.
Yes, that's pretty much, it's my sweet spot. And as well as biographies. We've actually translated books from other languages to do. So I've done a biography of Joseph Pilsudski, who was the general in Poland after the First World War and fought against the Russians in 1920. We publish books under agreement with a company called Trigliv, which does a whole bunch of things on Vikings and Slavic warriors and designs. We publish a bunch. I don't know if you're familiar with the Naffinger line of books, but we actually have the rights to publish all those now. So we've got those, and we're reformatting them for that.
So what are those?
That's basically a lot of source material. So it's like George is still doing things under his own thing, but he publishes books basically himself, and we do our things through wider distribution because of our publishing distribution agreements. But it's like the Russian armies of 1939 and Napoleonic Wars. It's a very good group of books that have great source material in it. Again, good for war gamers and historians looking to get for information.
Awesome.
But we've edited them down and put them in a more friendly format.
Cool. And so going from the historical wargaming, segueing, sort of going, I'm shitaying backwards here for a second. So Brandon, introducing you to the listening audience, many of them are expecting me to go in a very particular direction, which would be, I have to ask you a question that we have been asking for over 12 years now. Brandon, are you now or have you ever been a gamer?
Yes, gamer is a very broad term. So as far as wargaming, when I was in high school,
we sort of focus on card games, role-playing games, board games, and miniatures games. So any of those would count.
So I'm more of a video gamer personally. I've been a video gamer since since I could first remember. Atari, Nintendo, the original Nintendo, I played them all growing up. I had almost every console. Up until now, I have a PS5, so I don't have as much time as I used to, but I still am an avid gamer. As far as miniatures go, I don't play anymore, but I still collect. I actually just fully backed Cool Mini or Not's X-Men game they're coming out with.
Okay, so I have to break that right there. So they're doing an X-Men, the zombie game. Are you referring to? No,
what's it called? Hold on, I've got the X-Men United. If you can see, I actually have the Marvel one up on my display of games there.
Yeah, okay.
So I bought the Marvel core box after I fully kickstarted the X-Men one because that's the only thing that doesn't come in the fully kickstarted package. And it's the first time I've used Kickstarter, but I'm a huge X-Men fan, so I'm like, I have to get the whole thing, so I have every single model. And more so, they're all just going to sit on display before I actually get a chance to paint them. I'll be lucky if I get 2 painted in a year, but I'm a collector at heart, so it'll look nice on. We're gonna get a whole new display for them and everything.
Did you notice the zombie side, Cool Mini or Not Marvel game? That looked insane.
It looks really cool, and I love the detail on the models. And it's a shame because I like the actual look of them better than the chibi look of the United series. But they just have the United one that they're doing just has such a big range. I'm like, I have to do that.
Yeah.
But and I'm the type of person where if I get one thing, I like to stick with one thing. So if something I collect looks different, I'm like, no. It's a whole nother collection. I have to start the whole thing over again. So I do actually have the, I forget who put them out. It might have been like Night Miniatures or something like that, but they did X-Men and Marvel miniatures years ago.
Yeah.
And I have a couple X-Men.
Night models, yep.
Yes. Yep. And I have Gambit because Gambit's my favorite X-Men.
Cool.
And I think the zombie side miniatures are in the same type of scheme. They look similar, but I'm not going to get into that quite yet.
I was hoping that's where you were going because I didn't look at the other one, but I did look at the zombie side one to the point where I almost threw up a little bit in my mouth when I noticed that they have a 2-foot tall Galactus miniature. So,
yes.
That was a bridge too far for me. So, but no. So what you're describing is that you're a completist, with which any miniature gamer out there is going to immediately identify with. So
yes.
That's good. So you're a fellow traveler, which is excellent. So why don't you talk about a little bit about how So Winged Hussar started with your books and with these historical books, and then what happened to segue you into all of the other branches of fiction that you've been doing over the last, oh God, I don't even want to do the math.
Well, almost 10 years now.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah. So we early on when we started up, we were in contact. I know a lot of people in the industry, as do you, and a few other people. There's probably about 6 of us that know everyone that ever existed in miniature gaming. But at the time, I think Romeo was just bought Wild West Exodus, was just starting up Wild West Exodus, and they wanted to publish books. And we said, no, we know how to do that. I worked for Black Library when it first started up and was there for 10 years. And I had experience in gaming within that genre hobby, as well as being, well, now it's almost 40 years in publishing. And so we took that on and we commissioned the books ourselves, and we signed some very good authors. One Craig Gallant, I think, was one of them, as a matter of fact.
He may have been.
Yes. And so we started doing that, and we enjoyed it. Of course, the game went in different directions, but
as they do.
And but we branched out to other. So, for instance, we do the tie-ins for Antares games. They're also on hiatus at the moment, but we're still do those. We do all the Mantic games, and we've got a lot of stuff with them and a lot of stuff coming out. We've done a book with Anvil 8 for their game, and we're going to do a few more. And we've got some books for Infinity coming out, which I think, again, I think there's a Craig Gallant book in there as well.
There may well
as
be.
well as Mark Barber, who's also a very good author that we've hooked up with. And
Red Scar Publishing as well.
Yeah, and Red Scar. And so we've and then I can't forget, we also do publish things by Ace Game Books, which is like it's not a choose your own adventure, but they're adventure games. Jonathan Green's done a bunch of these, like The Wicked Wizard of Oz is the next one we've got coming out. But we also do Alice's Nightmares in Wonderland, which is sort of an interesting zombie take. And we're going to do a few more of those as well. So we
Blood and Plunder as well.
Yes, and a Blood and Plunder book, which is going to be coming out shortly.
Funny you should mention that. So Beyond the Gates of Antares, right? Who is that? Is that Warlord?
Yes.
Warlord. Are there other? Are you doing like other games or IPs with Warlord, or was that the primary?
That's the primary one at the moment, and right now we've got some things that are ready, but they put some things on hiatus, mostly because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of waiting there.
Yeah.
But we've done standalone novels from different authors as well. Yep. Oh, and then the one I forgot, I'm almost going to kick myself. We do The Great Martian War, right, which originally was tied into Quiet on the Martian Front, but we decided before we published the first book, we made it sort of our own take on it. Scott Washburn is the driving force behind that, and it's basically a carry-on from the original War of the Worlds novel, and we've done I think 6 novels based in that universe so far.
That's great. Those are awesome. I love those. And that was a genius move on your part, because as you noted when you were talking about games go in different directions and whatnot, that's one of the things that I think has been my largest takeaway writing in the gaming industry is these shifts, these massive shifts that can occur that are so far beyond your ability to control. And all of a sudden, to give one example, I can't tell you how many books I've written in for Fantasy Flight Games in across a bunch of different role-playing genres all of which they have now lost the license to. So
Jeez.
Yes.
I have a box in my attic that is too heavy for me to lift, which is where I put all of my Fantasy Flight role-playing game books that I've written for when they become defunct, and I no longer can pick up that box. So so that's a reality, right? And so what you did with those All Quiet on the Martian Front books is, I think you sort of learned more quickly than I did. Very well, very high up there on the learning curve. And rather than do a full partnership with the game, you kind of said, we'd love to do a series of books that take place in your universe. We just won't say explicitly that it's your universe, sort of. So was there more of a finessed partnership there?
Well, originally we were going to do that with All Quiet, and then they went out of business.
Right.
And so we decided it's a public domain story.
Right. Yep.
So we made it. We basically took H.G. Wells and we just carried it on. And in fact, we have survived 2 iterations of Martian Front trying to come back.
I did see it come back the last time. That's true.
Yeah. When they came back the second time, we talked to them and said, look, we're happy to work some of your things into the novel, but just understand it's our story.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and so we partnered with them to try to coordinate things that they were doing, but essentially we still kept it. And so if they come back again, we'd be happy to work with them to work things back in. But essentially, Scott has taken the story the way he wants to. It's our background.
Yeah.
And we're covering. The first couple of books took place in the U.S. We've got now one and a second one in Europe, and who knows what's going to happen next?
Well,
Texas. We got one down in Texas.
Texas as well, yeah.
That's awesome.
Book in Texas written by a Canadian. Who knew?
Well, hey, that's fiction for you, right?
Yeah.
And one thing you know for sure is that most of those characters are going to be very polite.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though they're from Texas.
That's right.
But I'm sure he sold it. I'm sure it's sellable. Go ahead.
No, it's all been fun, and the thing is, I think all the books we've been working with, all the series, we've been working with some great companies and great people, so that makes it fun as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you mentioned COVID and how that's kind of put some things on the back burner. How have you guys been adapting to this scourge that's thrown so much into chaos over the last couple of years?
Well, I mean, the biggest problem we face as a small publisher is what a lot of the industry faces right now, which is the landscape has changed as far as how books are sold. When we went into COVID, the Barnes & Noble was sold, and they took that opportunity to basically rebrand the stores and rebrand how they do things. So it's more difficult.
The actual business was sold?
Yes. So it
wow.
was the gentleman who used to own it, Len Riggio, sold it to a consortium out of the UK who also run, I think, Waterstones.
Uh-huh.
And so they have a slightly different take on how they want to market and sell and promote books within stores. So smaller publishers, some of the genre publishers, not necessarily are closed out, but it's more difficult for us to get in there based on a new strategy. So we have to rely a lot more on Amazon, independent bookstores, smaller chains in order to get books out. That's a little problematic as far as marketing and space and hitting the market. But also, we haven't been able to go to shows, which is a great way to meet people and promote things. And on top of that, just to add a little spice to everything, also during this period, the market for printing has taken a lot of different twists and turns. Some printers closed down because they couldn't do things. Some consolidated, and then when they open back up again, what we're finding is space on the printers has been somewhat limited. So even though we work with Simon Schuster to get books printed, and they're a big company. Getting press time has been difficult. So what used to be like maybe 3 weeks to get a book printed is now somewhere between 8 to 12 weeks. So that just runs all sorts of havoc to schedules and planning. But I mean, we're trying to plan towards that. It's just that, like anything else, it's like trying to steer a juggernaut away from an Titanic away from an iceberg. You can try.
A juggernaut and ice. You missed me there. You lost me in your next metaphor, but I liked it. Juggernaut and iceberg. I was really enjoying where that was going.
Well,
then you threw the Titanic in there.
Yeah, that's it. But it's been challenging. But like anything else, we're adapting to it. And doing as I said, we are endeavoring to persevere throughout this whole adventure.
Well, so far so good is all I can say on that front. So do you guys? So you've got all of these projects lined up, as you said. So to sort of introspect now for a moment and turn my eyes inward. My first memory of Vince was Adepticon, so that makes perfect sense. And you had been listening to the show, and you reached out, and you were giving prizes for prize support, and we really, really appreciated that. We were still very young at that point, both in years and experience. Now as old men as we just sit around. And I remember, I don't know if it was that year or the next year, where you invited me to dinner. Dan Abnett was there, the entire slate of Black Library authors, and I'm a huge Dan Abnett fan, so that was terrifying. And I remember we went to a very fancy steak house.
Yep.
And I hate blue cheese. That's an important piece of trivia that you need to know. And everybody was ordering the special, and I was just fascinated, and I was listening to everybody talking, and I was just like basking in this experience and not paying attention. And I heard everybody sort of out of the corner of my ear ordering the special. So I didn't want to look like a child surrounded by all of these great magnates of writing. And so I said, I'll take the special also. And of course the special was covered in blue cheese.
Yes.
And I remember that got put down in front of me, and I immediately was brought back to myself and was like trying to scrape the blue cheese off of my really super expensive steak that Vince and Black Library were paying for. And to this day, that is the worst ordering I've ever done in my life in a restaurant setting. But
we had a good time.
I would say that dinner is probably in the top 10 moments of everything that's ever happened from the podcast. Without a doubt. It was just a phenomenal experience, and thank you once again for inviting me, because that was awesome. And then we had a relationship with Romeo. And the next interesting thing was that the podcast had a relationship with Romeo. He was actually one of, if not our first advertiser. And purely by chance, you guys ended up starting to work together on the Wild West Exodus stuff. At the same time, he approached me and asked me to write all of the fiction for the rule book, and then do a couple more short stories and whatnot. And it really struck me when you were talking about how you got into it with Wild West Exodus, because you said something along the lines of, we know somebody who could do that, and it was you. And I remember the approach to me after the rule book was all done. Romeo called me and asked me if I knew anyone who could write comic books, because they wanted to do comic books. And I said, I do know someone. I can write comic books. I had no idea how to write comic books. As soon as I got off the phone, I got on Google and immediately started looking up, how do you write comic books? But that was a six comic book run, and we all learned a lot about the economics of comic books.
Yes.
and how much it costs to put together a comic book. And I believe a gentleman, a learned gentleman from New Jersey, at one point took Romeo aside and said, "Hey, Romeo, for a fraction of what each comic book is going to cost you, or did cost you, because we did a run of 6, you could have a full-length novel." And that fired Romeo's imagination. And then I got a call from that same learned individual from New Jersey. And actually, it was an email first, and it said something about, "I want you to do this, but I don't want you to be afraid. It's just like eating an elephant." And I don't think Vince included the second half of that piece of advice. I was just left wondering how writing a novel was like eating an elephant. And then he emailed back and said, "You just do it one bite at a time." And okay, all right. And so that was how I started writing books, was you reaching out and sort of moving all of those pieces. And that was exciting. And it was a very interesting, the learning curve was huge, and, it was a very collaborative effort. We did 5 books. A couple other authors here or there were working on different books also, that we then later on worked together, all of us, which was cool. And I remember, as you say, things started to shift and the game started to sort of slide sideways on us all. Across the ocean. You said, so this is what's happening, but I don't want you to get frustrated. I want you to write your own book. And I'll never forget that. And that was probably, stepping away from the podcast memory for a moment, one of the best moments I think I've ever had in my entire life. And that resulted in Legacy of Shadow. And then, of course, Crimson Sand, Crimson Snow, the fantasy book that I wrote. And then the Alchemist book, where we all came together and we created a whole alternate history world that was roughly around, the Wild West timeline, but at the same time, all kinds of other cool historical aspects. And so it's been a wild ride with you guys. And so, as you just mentioned, there's a Firelock Games Blood and Plunder Oak and Iron book in the works, which was very exciting for me, because that was my first actual historical book. I had to actually do a bunch of research and figure out what was going on there. And at one point, I remember I had an entire timeline of the actual historical figures that you incidentally meet in the book. And somewhere along the line, my outline of the novel and my timeline of where all of these people really were in the real world and when got messed up. And I had a person who could not have possibly been in the Caribbean be in the Caribbean talking to my characters, and it dawned on me in the editing phase, and I had to go back and rewrite a whole bunch of stuff because that person wasn't actually in that hemisphere that year. So
listen, don't let facts get in the way
right?
of good fiction.
It's historical fiction. That's what I was thinking, but I could.
That's right.
Oh, look at that. A gift from Zoom. They've removed our 40-minute time limit. Yay. Love it. Okay, thank you.
Hurrah.
Yay. And then now the big project that I'm working on right now that I don't know, I'm sure there are other big projects happening, but Infinity, right?
Yes.
Is one of the biggest games in the world. And so that's been very exciting also. That's been writing in Coronaville. I don't want to be flippant. Writing during Corona is as difficult as anything else. I'm a teacher, so that whole job has changed to the point where I don't have nearly as much time as I used to, and it's a lot more, nerve-wracking and frustrating than it used to be. And so it's going slower, but I've been loving writing with that. And of course, the other gentleman who is writing the book at the same time is focusing on different factions. I'm focusing on the nomads, and folding into the nomads is there's some combined army, the alien bad guys, and there's a lot of Aleph agents, the AI that sort of controls the whole human sphere. And what's the other book that's like sort of who? So my understanding is that gentleman is actually a pilot.
Yes, we're not going to talk too much about that.
No.
It's all hush hush.
Oh,
but
okay.
it's
just very it's very intimidating knowing that
yes.
the other guy writing military fiction is actually in the military.
Yes, but he's got experience with all this. He's Mark Barber's his name.
Yeah.
He's done some great writing for us with across the Mantic and Antares ranges, and this book we're very excited about this, yours and his, because we think they're both going to be well. We anticipate we signed you both up that it was going to be excellent, but I think it's coming out excellent. And Mark is actually coming out with a book of his own, unrelated to anything else, called The Order, which is sort of like a chivalric novel, sometime in the fall.
So when we first approached Corvus Belli about doing the Infinity novels, I kind of understood the gravity of how big the game was. It was actually Mark's idea. He said we were talking about different IPs and different things we had going on, and he said to me, "Have you ever talked to the guys who make Infinity?" And I said, "No, I haven't really heard of it because, again, I'm not as in the know on tabletop gaming." So I looked them up and I just sent a random query, and I'm just like, "You guys have any interest in doing novels? Like, we've done all these other novels with tabletop gaming, and we'd love to get involved with you guys." And I heard back pretty quickly, and they were interested. So the ball got rolling really quickly. I was really surprised about how quick everything went. So when we had an actual agreement in place, I said, "All right, this is going to be one of the bigger novel series we've launched with, and there's a lot of lore and there's a lot of real world comparison. Like, I really want to get off on a good start." So I looked through our catalog of authors, and I was looking to see who was involved in what, who was interested. And, Craig, you've been there on a lot of our firsts with various projects, and I know that you have a lot of knowledge with science fiction. And I said, "I really want Craig on this project. We can get him." And then Mark has been also another big author we've had on firsts for things. So I said, Mark had a lot of projects involved. I said to him, "Hey, this was your idea, and you seem to know a little bit about the game. So you want to take a stab at this?" So he's really loved talking with the guys from Corvus Belli, and he's loved getting involved with everything. And I think they're actually going to be launching a miniature and some rules to go along with the novel for his.
Oh, cool.
I don't know too much about that, but I know there's been some talk about it, and I know that I've seen something floating around about rules. I haven't looked too in depth yet, but they're fully on board on making this as cooperative project as they possibly can.
Oh, they've been great. They've been very responsive to queries, yes. and there's so much lore that's probably had to learn more for that book than I did for the pirate book, and I don't know how to sail, so I need to learn a lot for the pirate book.
But see, that makes all the difference in the world when you're working with people, is that, there's give and take, and you can talk to them about it. For some things we've worked on, there's been lore. Other things we've had to make up stuff as we go along.
Right.
Essentially. So you have to coordinate that with whoever you're publishing with to make sure it doesn't go against something they want to do or don't want to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things I can say about both Corvus Belli and Mantic. Both those companies are very, very responsive on their lore masters. With all the books that we've worked on with Mantic and then what we're starting to work on with CB, they've been very responsive about getting us information back right away and being involved to make sure that the books match their vision. And while that's not been the case on all of the IPs that we've worked with over the years, I have nothing but good things to say about these two companies. It's been a fantastic experience.
That's awesome. So we're hitting the with the limit of my time now that my ability to record at this point. We don't have to quite cut it yet, but I just wanted to put that warning out there. So is Infinity the newest project that you guys kind of have started to put together?
Yes, they're the latest IP that we've signed on.
Awesome.
Really our schedule is so jam-packed, we couldn't even think about getting another IP at this moment. They were kind of like, we'll see what happens. And now that they've happened, they've kind of skyrocketed up on the list of priorities. So they're the latest big thing we have.
That's awesome. And as far as upcoming projects, we've got the 10-year anniversary extravaganza. I'm gonna start pumping this up, Vince. So you're gonna have to do something to match the hype.
I think we're gonna have to have elephants and people on trampolines.
Confetti
I think
cannons.
is what's gonna end up there.
Although confetti cannons and elephants may not be a great combo. I don't know.
All right, fine.
Well, I can just throw out there the book I'm working on right now is actually for Mantic Games' Kings of War. It's written by C.L. Werner. It's called Rise of the Celestians, and it's basically setting up the whole entire lore for that game of how everything came to be, how the gods, the quote unquote gods of that universe came to be, and help set up the whole game's lore and history. So it's a very deep dive into the lore of the game, and it doesn't tie so much into the models as much as it does helping to establish how that game's everything came to be. So I think that's like the first big thing that's going to help kick off 10 years of Winged Hussar, because I'm almost done editing that, and then that'll launch right around the 10-year mark, and we'll have that ready for Adepticon.
That's awesome. So, and we should say C.L. Werner is also involved in the whole alchemist world that we all put together. That I gotta finish that thing, and Robert Waters also involved in that.
Yes.
So.
Certain previous authors of a certain previous franchise that no longer exist all kind of came together to create a new franchise.
Indeed. And that was fun, because I have to say that those Zoom meeting calls that we had, that were all brainstorming on how to create the history of that world, some wacky stuff ended up going into that Bible, which is fantastic.
Yes.
All right. So before we go, though, I did put out there on Twitter if anybody had any questions. And one question that did pop up a couple times, Lagnus Terrier and Keg Tapper in particular, are asking about Legacy of Shadow sequel. And I was going to say I was actually working on that last summer. And unfortunately, one of the main characters was based on a really good friend of mine who passed away. So I sort of, Brandon and Vince were very, very kind to let me sort of set that project aside, and then turn my gaze towards the Infinity. Actually, is where it went instead. But the intention is still there to go back to that. So I'm very excited to do that. However, there's a more important question that did come up by a listener and follower, the Chronic Toast. And this is more of a philosophical question he wants to pose to all of us. How do you gentlemen feel about pineapple on pizza? See, very divisive. I didn't know if we really wanted to go there. I mean, it's something that could tear families apart, but I thought, why not brave it?
I'll break the ice.
Yeah, go ahead.
I love pineapple on pizza, and I've actually had Hawaiian pizza in Hawaii, and it does something. It's really good. My Domino's order is pineapple and onions.
Oh, Brandon's flexing, Vince. You got anything to add?
I've introduced the family to the pineapple concept. Every gathering, I order a pineapple pie.
I don't know how
I do wonder sometimes where he came from. This is one of those times. I'm just, it's like conceptually I understand it. I just can't get my head around it.
Really?
All I can say is my sister likes it as well. She's eaten half a pie of pineapple pizza.
I feel like I'm stuck in the middle of a family fight. He went on to ask specifically, do you put the pineapple on before or after baking?
However the restaurant prepares it, because I am not a chef.
I should say my go-to pizza is also a Hawaiian pizza, which of course is thick ham and pineapple. I've never been to Hawaii per se, but I bet it would taste just as good there. And I would say, as you just said, Brandon, however the restaurant does it. But I happen to know that the restaurant, because the pineapple is hot when I eat it, puts it on before baking. And so I would say that's definitely the way to go.
Yeah,
I would think if I was to make pineapple pizza, I would want to put it on before and sort of caramelize that a little bit from the heat.
And that does happen. See, there you go. And now Vince, you're talking as an anti-pineapple person, really. You're just conceptually, you're saying how you would go about it.
If I was to do it, that's how I would do it.
Which you wouldn't do.
I think you want to get the sugars sort of going in that pineapple.
And see, we got a little cooking discussion.
Yeah, from my
as well.
cooking expertise, this is how I would approach it.
Excellent.
See, he is the chef, so he can give those answers.
Okay, excellent. So before we go, where can people find about all these different projects and what you guys are doing, and when the 10-year what the Jubilee Gala, where they can find those plans when they're finally finalized? Ooh, that's bad. Finally finalized. I just did that in front of my editors. That's horrible.
Well, that's why you have editors.
It's first
fix
draft.
Things like
it's a
that.
first draft.
So, you can get our books pretty much anywhere, Amazon, local bookstores. You can get them at Barnes & Noble if you order them there. They did stock some books in the past, so you can do that. You can go to our website, which is whpsupplyroom.com, which is our new store address. Mm-hmm. And that has all the books there. We've got ebooks, we've got printed books, we've got audio books for certain things. In fact, I think one of your books is an audio book too.
It is.
We also we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. Come join. Twitter and Facebook will always have updates on it. We post things on there. We have an Instagram account.
We also do have a Facebook group for Winged Hussar Publishing and Zmock Books, where you can go and interact directly with our authors and the Winged Hussar Publishing team. So if you have any direct questions for anybody who publishes with us, you can go and join that group and comment. And certain authors who are not on Facebook, I can always relay questions to them.
Yes, I don't know who that might be. I'm very responsive to emails that have Facebook in them, though.
There you go.
And as for me, I'd like to I'll pump my moment here in the sun. I do have a website for my writing called The Gallant Scribe, the GALLANT scribe.com. So you can go there. My New Year's resolution is to start blogging there again, and I've already written 2. I just haven't put them up yet. But also you can go through that website if you have any questions. All of my books are linked back to the Winged Hussar site or Amazon. I can't remember how my wife did that. She does all of that important stuff for me, and for which I'm duly grateful as always. And but yeah, so you can also ask questions there, and the next time we meet, I'll be looking there for questions as well. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for giving your evening like this. I really appreciate it. This is the inaugural launch of these little mini segments of mine, and I wanted to do it with you guys.
And we appreciate that. Oh, and don't forget, Jamaica is going to be coming out this summer.
Jamaica. Now, what's Jamaica?
That's the Craig Gallant book.
Oh, that's the pirate book. That's right. I knew.
Yes.
That was it. I was trying to make a smooth segue, and it didn't work. It just made me look like an idiot. Okay, so
no. I think it worked fine.
Well,
Don't worry.
I can't wait to see that as well again in physical form. All right, so guys, thank you very much, and good luck, and hope to see you in Chicago.
Yes, we do too. I hope say best to everyone there, and all the listeners as well. And feel free to contact us if you have any questions.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was a D6G Hot Take.
Achievement unlocked! You've made it to the end of another D6 Generation episode, the podcast whose humor has universally been acclaimed as not too horrible. Please let us know what you thought of the show by emailing us at info@the d6generation.com. If for some inexplicable reason you actually enjoyed this show, You can help others find out about it by leaving positive reviews on iTunes. Thanks for listening and happy gaming.